Happy Saturday. It is Saturday, July 26th, 2025, and I'm working on a book project called $5 in the World. It's about stories and sayings and expressions from my dad's life. And I'm doing this because I want to memorialize my dad in some kind of more permanent way than just my memory and the memories of those who knew him. I want to be able to share some of his thoughts, all of his thoughts, really, all of his ideas, his sayings with the world because I think it'll make a difference. I think the way he lived his life for 101 years, most of it, all the time I knew him, was highly effective living, a fulfilled life, and a life that impacted hundreds, if not thousands, of people. And and I just think that the way he approached the world, approached life, his faith, his family, all the things that we think are important, his marriage, his kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, everybody. I think he did it well. He lived life to the fullest. He lived a robust life. He lived a generous life, and I think that I think it's important to learn from those who live well. There's two ways to learn: by experience and by the wisdom of others. And I think we learn both ways. But man, when we pick it up from somebody else and apply it in our own lives, it's to our benefit. And so I've been working on this, and I've not written a book before, so I thought it would be kind of a having this channel set up where I can come on every week and tell you what I'm working on, the kind of ideas I've got for the book, and test drive the outlines of the chapters with you. I can get feedback. I can get your input. I can get a sense of reaction to it. Because eventually, I desire that this become a book and that the public will buy it. That would be the ultimate cool thing. But at the very least, it'll be something that we can share amongst our family and the people who knew him. But I really do actually hope and pray for a broader audience for it because, again, I think it has value. I just want to treat it well. I want to do it right, and I want it to be effective. So your input, your feedback helps me so much. This is a subscription channel, but it's free subscription. And if you're watching this, would you tell other people about it? If you find it beneficial, tell other people about it. Ask them to subscribe or at least check in on it. Share it with others. It'd be a big help. And I do, like I say, really appreciate the chats when you are on. I do know that the timing of this has been a little bit inconsistent since I started it. I'm thinking about that a bit. Maybe making it more like a podcast and being the same day, same time every week. But for now, I'm doing what I can with what I have and making sure that there's something on here every week because that's part of a commitment I made to myself that I would produce weekly because I know that everything I've read about writing says it's part inspiration, but a lot of perspiration. It's just show up every week and work on it. You can't edit a blank page, and just waiting for the mood to strike is not an effective way to really do anything. So I'm working on it every week, and I just like to say I welcome your feedback. So this chapter, as much as I admired my dad and got a real found so many of his sayings useful and beneficial, he wasn't perfect any more than anybody else is. And some of his sayings and or expressions, uh, not a big fan of. There was a few of them that used to just aggravate me so much. One, when I'm going to share two of them tonight. One when I was younger, just a kid, and he would say it, and it would aggravate me and frustrate me. And then there was one he used when we got older, and we'd be in sometimes business discussions. He became a business consultant for my brother and myself later in life, and other times we would be discussing, have a difference of opinion on something. And he had this one expression, it was almost kind of a shortcut to try to, so to speak, win the argument. And that one actually would at times infuriate me, um, which might have been some of my temperament as much as it was the statement itself. I'll let you be the judge. But I'm gonna share those two. There's others, but I thought it'd be kind of a little bit of a balancing that is like I say, as great as he was, and these are not huge character flaws or anything like that, but they just to say that no matter how adept we are at communication, no matter how gifted we are at reading people and persuading and the art of leadership and all of those things, we don't always get it right. It doesn't always, the things we say don't always land the way we want them to. And I think that's just a reminder to be careful with how we talk and what we say and know who we're talking to and what works with them and what doesn't. And the other thing is, what do we do when it does go sideways? What do we do when we use one of those expressions or make a comment that doesn't land the way we wanted it to, and things get sideways? What's a good way to redirect or reconnect on the conversation? That was one of his superpowers too. He knew how to put a train back on the tracks, and I'm so thankful that he did, because I know it's one of the strongest reasons we had such a good relationship all our lives, because he didn't let um, something going sideways stay sideways. All right. So with all that said, thanks again for being here, live or in replay. And this is the name of this chapter. It's called A Couple of Sayings We Didn't Like. Goes like this. Here's the outline for it. There is an expression, nobody's perfect, and we know it to be true. Even with people we admire, to maintain perspective and integrity, it's important to acknowledge differences we may have with the other person. Well, this is a book about the sayings and stories of my dad that shaped my own and so many others' way of thinking. He had some sayings that I would not respond to very well. To his credit, he sincerely said what he believed and believed what he said. He normally operated with high EI, emotional intelligence. But I will share two of the expressions in this chapter he used that would not get the response he hoped for when he used them with me and my brother. One was a favorite of his when we were younger, and one when he was dealing with us as adults. He loathed to be late for something. That is a good quality, of course. Anyone who has been a little kid or spends any time with one knows that it is rare to find one that pays attention to the time-space continuum. If we were going somewhere with Dad, and that was a regular occurrence, when it was time to roll, he expected us to roll. He'd make the call to go and head for the door. We wouldn't always be ready or willing, and inevitably say, "Wait!" Just as inevitably, he would say, "Wait is what broke the wagon down," and keep moving. As witty as that saying may be, it would frustrate me no end to hear it. He wasn't being mean. He was trying to be motivating and funny. He told us that saying came from a grandparent of his, and since I'm pretty sure he didn't like hearing it as a kid either, it was only fitting to use it with us, kind of like a hazing ritual. He would get mad, we would get mad, and he wouldn't. He might even say it again with a qualifying statement. It's just an old Northern Michigan expression, which was meant to take the sting out of it. Fortunately, because we found it worthwhile to go where he was going most of the time, we would catch up and get on with whatever we would do for that day. I know my brother didn't like it either, and even our sister Leslie had scorn for it. He didn't retire the expression until we got older and he could employ stronger language to get us into gear. He brought it out of retirement for the grandkids, and I admit to laughing when he would employ it with them. For the record, they don't love it either. The other expression he used that would actually make me mad enough to bark at him was used when he was trying to tilt a decision in his direction. I've written elsewhere about his intelligence and persuasiveness, but there were still times when I'd have ideas of my own contrary to his. These discussions normally started out well. He and I were comfortable with taking contrary opinions, or he and I were comfortable with talking through contrary opinions. A lot of the time, we could reach a consensus without too much heat. Sometimes he would take what I considered to be a shortcut or even a cheap shot, and I don't know of a time it didn't elicit a harsh response from me. He would be making his case, and his closing statement would be, "Just think it through." That might not sound so terrible, but to me it sounded dismissive of what I had said, and when I came to my senses, I would see that he was right. Over the years, we became accustomed to his taking our opinions seriously, even when we were young. I think that's why this expression upset me as much as it did. It felt out of character, like the rules of engagement had changed. I don't think he meant any disrespect by it. Looking back on it, I believe it reflected his belief in the rightness of his position and his confidence that I would come to see it in the same light. It was a way of asking for a decision to be reconsidered. It just never landed that way when he said it. It reminded me of a saying he credited to his mother. She was intelligent and willful in her own right. She would half jokingly say, I don't know why people don't think like me. I think right. Our family developed an environment of discourse that made sure everyone would be heard, regardless of age. There was no guarantee that we would be agreed with, but we would be heard and taken seriously, that each of us could be right. It was always a jolt to be in households that operated with a more traditional top down style. Our parents' approach took longer to get a resolution, and the upside was that when there was resolution, there was acceptance of it too. And we learned how to maintain our positions in the face of opposition. What we say and how we say what we say and how we say it matters. Awareness of how the people we are talking to relate to us is crucial for effective communication. To his credit and to our benefit, Dad knew how to pivot out of the verbal misstep and redirect the discussion most of the time. I believe it was due to his overriding desire for connectivity being stronger than his need to be right all of the time. I look forward to the chapter on our parents' approach to raising us. They had an interesting outcome in mind, and according to them, they achieved it. A little more on that one at the next chapter. Anyway, so that's it. Those two, like I say, those two expressions are not earth shaking. They weren't soul searing. They weren't, destructive or even mean spirited, but they could, in the settings and in the situations and the temperament of me and my brother and my sister, that they would always get a response that was not usually what I think he was hoping for. I do know that Waits What Broke the Wagon Down was more of a tease, and I think he thought it was kind of funny that we would get riled up about it. It never turned into a knockdown drag out or anything. It was just another way of saying, let's go, we got to get going. But to a little kid, it just sounded impatient and bossy, and we didn't like it. But the other one, just think it through. Again, it can sound like good advice, and I guess um, it might even be good advice. But I don't know, when you're fully engaged and you're used to give and take and back and forth, and each idea being taken seriously, it sometimes it just felt like a shortcut, like I said, and it felt like um, it would always, that one I would get mad. I would get offended, and I would I would bark at that one. I would, um, and like I said, he would typically pivot away from it. He wouldn't dig in on it and pound that issue. He would try a different approach because again, his idea wasn't so much about dying on every hill, but to get us both to the top of the mountain. And so he's willing to pivot, to adjust, to change the messaging, to even um, kind of triangulate to a different position that still led us in the same general direction. He was very, very talented at that. And but every now and then, like anyone else, you want to take a shortcut. You want to get there faster. And again, I think he was coming from it in good faith. He really did think that with a little more thought, a little quieter moment, it might break through. And I gotta admit, maybe sometimes it did. I just didn't like the expression. I didn't like the way it landed. I didn't like the interpretation I tagged it with, and I just couldn't shake it. So I don't use it um, because I don't know if it would even affect other people the same way it did me, but I'm not taking the chance. So if you ever hear me say it, if you ever hear me use that expression, in one of our discussions, I give you permission to go ahead and bark at me because I did to my dad. It's only seemed to be fair. So that is the chapter. A couple of sayings we didn't like. There were others, and as I think of them, or if I get a few of them from Chuck, my brother, or Leslie, my sister, or even my daughter Emily, or Daniel, my son, or his kids, there are a few people still running around here that they're around him enough to get a whole bunch of his expressions. And I'm going to be adding their reminiscences and their recollections of those, if in case I missed any as well as this book project moves on. But those were two that came to mind today. And it was funny because I was talking about this book project with Emily a while back, and she said, be sure to share some of the hardships and some of the difficulties and even some of the mistakes because he's not a two-dimensional character. And that's absolutely true. And that was the inspiration to at least this chapter done, and there'll be others in the same light. But that feedback from Emily is the kind of thing I'm talking about. When I hear back from people that are listening to these or letting me talk to them about it, and they have some feedback to share, I'm going to take it in because um, I do want it to be as good as it can be. And I again, so glad you're here. I'm so glad you take time to watch. I try to keep these under 30 minutes. Your time is valuable. And I think I want to get the idea across that these chapters are going to be almost like a devotional kind of book or a thought for the day kind of book, at least the first draft of it. I can see where there's a way to expand this book into other directions at other times, but for the first one, I think my intent has been has kind of come out of this project, and it feels like this kind of thought for the day style would be really good for the first one. I'd like your feedback on that too. Do you think that it would be a good way for this book to be used as a thought for the day kind of thing, or um, or like a devotional? So, thanks again for being here. I'm going to sign off for the day. It is Saturday afternoon, and there's still some daylight out there. So I want to get out and do some things. Looks like the rain held off. So that's it for today. I hope you like this chapter. I wonder if you get time, put in the comments, are there certain expressions your folks or grandparents or your spouse or your kids or somebody you're close to that means a lot to you that they have or they say that just doesn't land right? I'd be curious what yours are. Those are two of mine. Anyway, have a great day. Thanks again for being here. $5 in the world. We'll be back next week. I'll either be on a Friday or a Saturday. And I think I'll do that chapter I referenced at the end of this one. What were they after? Why did they take the approach to parenting they did? And that one might be a little longer. Look forward to working on it and sharing it with you. That's it for now. See you next time. Thanks again. Bye.